He hadn't spoken in 3 years, not a single word. And yet on a random Tuesday morning, a 5-year-old boy stepped between a wounded German shepherd and 3 rock-throwing teenagers, and something extraordinary happened. This isn't just a story about a dog. It's about what happens when the right soul walks into your life at the exact moment you're about to lose hope. In the small town of Maplewood, where kids still rode bikes to school and neighbors left their front doors unlocked, Maya Thompson was trying to hold it all together. She worked 2 jobs: daytime nurse at the local clinic, nighttime janitor at an office building, just to make rent on their modest single-story house. It wasn't much, but it was safe, and Maya would have traded anything for safety, especially for her son Ethan. He was 5 now. Quiet. Too quiet. He hadn't spoken since his 2nd birthday, the day his father walked out and never came back. Maya had tried everything: speech therapy, child psychologists, even dietary changes. But Ethan stayed silent, trapped in a world she couldn't reach. He wasn't intellectually delayed. He understood everything. He'd nod, point, even laugh at cartoons. But words gone. It was called selective mutism, the doctor said. Trauma-related, possibly permanent. Maya just called it heartbreaking. She remembered his voice, soft and curious, like it was another lifetime. But now his green eyes looked distant, like he was seeing a world that didn't include her or anyone else. That Tuesday morning in late September, Maplewood's leaves had just started turning golden red. Ethan had barely touched his breakfast, pushing scrambled eggs around his plate with the back of his fork. "I was thinking we could take a walk today," Maya said, trying to sound light. "Maybe out by the creek trail. You always liked the birds." Ethan didn't nod, didn't shake his head, but he got up and reached for his little Velcro sneakers. That was all the agreement Maya needed. The air was crisp as they stepped onto the old forest path, fallen leaves crunching underfoot. Maplewood's hiking trail wound behind the town's edge, half-forgotten, peaceful. Maya held Ethan's small hand, her thumb tracing over his knuckles. His hand was cold even under the sun. "Look there," she said, pointing to a red cardinal in a tree. "Remember that one we saw last week on the fence? You drew him in your sketchbook." Ethan glanced up but gave no sign of recognition. His face was expressionless, just like always. They walked deeper into the trees. That's when they heard the shouting. At first it was just muffled echoes, raised voices, laughter that didn't sound friendly. Then came the heavy footsteps crashing through the underbrush. "Get back here, you mutt." "Yeah, run, coward." Then came the panting, sharp, frantic animal. Seconds later, a German shepherd burst through the brush just 50 feet ahead of them. His coat was filthy, matted with dirt and blood. One ear drooped. His ribs stuck out like broken fence posts beneath his fur, and he was running for his life. Behind him, 3 teenage boys emerged, each with rocks clutched in their hands. One wore a varsity hoodie. Another had a baseball cap turned backward. They were laughing, taunting. "There he goes, bet. I can hit him from here." One rock struck the dog's hind leg and he stumbled, yelped, but kept running. "Stop it!" Maya shouted, her voice cracking with rage. "What the hell are you doing?" The boys froze. They hadn't seen her before. "Mind your business, lady," the tallest one snapped. "He's been biting pets all over town." "That's a lie," Maya said, stepping protectively in front of Ethan. But what happened next, no one could have predicted. Ethan pulled free from her hand and ran. "Ethan!" Maya screamed. "No!" Her son ran straight into the path of the terrified dog and stood, arms outstretched between him and the boys with rocks. The dog, skidding to a halt, froze. His ears twitched. His chest heaved. But he didn't bolt. He stood behind Ethan, pressing his body gently against the boy's back, as if he understood this tiny human was protecting him. "Get out of the way, kid," the blonde teen yelled. But Ethan didn't move. His eyes, those bright green eyes that had been so empty, were now locked on the teenagers. Fierce, blazing, alive. He didn't speak, but his message couldn't have been clearer. "You'll have to go through me first." Just then, Maya reached them, pulling Ethan back into her arms, heart pounding. "If any of you throw one more rock," she growled at the teens, her voice low and dangerous, "I'll make sure every parent in this town hears about it. I know who you are. I know where you live." A lie, but a well-delivered one. The smallest boy looked nervous. "Come on, man, let's just go." The leader hesitated, glared, but then spat on the ground. "Fine. Stupid mutt's probably gonna die anyway." They disappeared back into the trees. The German shepherd stayed still, trembling. His eyes tracked Maya's every move. She could now see the deep cuts on his legs. One paw was bleeding, and yet When Ethan reached out to pet him, he leaned in, like he hadn't felt kindness in a long, long time. "Oh, buddy," Maya whispered, kneeling beside them both. "What happened to you?" Ethan looked up, his lips parted, and in the softest whisper barely audible, "Buddy." Maya froze. She blinked. What did you say?" Ethan looked at the dog again. "Buddy," he repeated a little louder. Maya gasped. Her hand flew to her mouth. Tears filled her eyes. That's a perfect name for him." Then came the third miracle. Buddy heard Ethan said. 3 full words. Not just sounds, not babble, but real intentional communication for the first time in 3 years. Maya didn't know whether to laugh or collapse. If this kind of story touches your heart, make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel, Heroes for Animals, where powerful real-life stories like this one come to life every week. Maya knew what had to happen next. She couldn't leave the dog there. They walked slowly home, Ethan's small hand resting gently on Buddy's neck. The dog limped, barely able to walk, but didn't leave Ethan's side. Something had connected between them, something silent but powerful. Back at their tiny kitchen, Maya poured water into a bowl. Buddy drank like he hadn't had water in days. Ethan sat next to him, wide-eyed, whispering, "Not much, just small things." "That's your bowl. That's my drawing. That's the red bird again." Maya stood in the doorway watching. Something had cracked open, something sacred. That night, as Buddy lay curled up on a blanket near the couch, Ethan lay beside him, one hand on the dog's chest. Maya tried to get him to sleep in his own bed, but he shook his head. No. And at 3 a.m., Maya heard something she hadn't heard in years. Humming. Her son, sitting up on the couch, stroking Buddy's fur, and humming the lullaby she used to sing to him when he was a baby. She leaned against the hallway wall, silent tears streaming down her face. Buddy, beaten and broken, had done in hours what 3 years of specialists never could. He brought her son back to life. Maya called in sick to work for the first time in 2 years. She didn't even think about it. How could she leave Ethan alone with a wounded dog, this wounded dog, after what had just happened? Ethan was still humming softly that morning, barely lifting his eyes from Buddy, as if afraid the dog might vanish. In Maya's mind, everything had changed. Her son had spoken, not once, not a fluke, but real connected words. And all of it, every word, had been about the dog lying half-curled on a blanket in the corner of their living room. A German shepherd who somehow had reached into the silence and pulled Ethan back out. But now came the hard part. Buddy was still badly injured. His back leg was swollen and stiff, and a cut above his eye looked angry and raw. There were bruises along his ribs and what looked like a partially healed gash on his flank. She couldn't afford a vet, not even close. She had maybe $43 left in her checking account until payday, and that was before gas or groceries. But she had to try. "Let's get you cleaned up, big guy," Maya said quietly, crouching beside Buddy with a damp towel. She'd boiled water to disinfect it, an old trick from her days working in the ER before she had Ethan. Buddy didn't flinch when she touched him. He didn't growl. He just looked at her with those tired, dark brown eyes and let her do what needed to be done. "Good boy," she murmured. "You're safe now. We're not gonna hurt you." Ethan sat nearby, completely engaged, more present than she'd seen him in years. He watched every movement, occasionally whispering words under his breath. Towel, water, that's his foot. Each word was a miracle. As Maya moved around Buddy's neck, her fingers brushed something strange, hard, flat, and cold tucked beneath the base of his fur. She parted the hair and frowned. A tag, but not the kind you'd expect. It wasn't a normal dog tag, not even close. It was metal dull gray, military in texture. Rough to the touch. No pet name, no phone number. Instead it read, K9 T07741 classified. Return to base immediately. Project Mindbridge Phase 3 active. Maya froze. What in the world? She turned it over. On the back were what looked like serial numbers, long strings of letters and digits, something out of a government ID book. There was also a tiny barcode partially scratched off. Her stomach twisted. "Buddy," she whispered, "what are you?" For the rest of the afternoon, Maya tried to push it out of her mind, but the metal tag itched at her brain like a splinter under the skin. She didn't tell Ethan. He was too focused on Buddy, still whispering, still watching. The little boy who'd once drifted through life like a ghost now sat with his legs crossed, hand resting on the dog's paw, like they were best friends from another life. When Ethan finally fell asleep on the couch that night, Buddy's nose tucked gently against the boy's chest, Maya pulled out her laptop and sat at the kitchen table. The metal tag lay next to her on a dish towel. She stared at the words again. classified, return to base, Project Mindbridge. It all sounded absurd, like something out of a thriller movie. But it was real. She opened her browser and began searching. Nothing came up on Google. No dog registry for K9 TW741. No government project called Mindbridge. No references to Phase 3 active or otherwise. But Maya wasn't new to the internet. She'd worked ER shifts long enough to know how to find answers no one wanted to give. She went deeper into niche subreddits forums for ex-military dark corners of conspiracy theory blogs. It took 2 hours. Finally, on a forum called SubMindOps, buried deep in a post from 3 years ago, someone had mentioned a Mindbridge K9 augmentation project. It said, supposed to be DARPA-funded, training dogs for enhanced cognition and field-level decision-making. Heard it was shut down after the animals got too smart. They terminated the subjects, supposedly. Maya's heart skipped. Then another reply. It was only 5 words. If you found one run, suddenly a new post popped up. She hadn't written anything, hadn't posted a question, but someone somehow knew she was there. Delete this, they're watching. A second message, this time more urgent. They monitor all mentions. If you found one of their dogs, get rid of it. Now they'll come for it, and for you. Her blood ran cold. She reached out and shut the laptop, slowly, carefully. Her hands trembled. In the living room, Buddy raised his head slightly just for a moment, as if he could feel her fear. Then he put his head back down closer to Ethan's chest and closed his eyes. That night, Maya lay awake in bed staring at the ceiling. She hadn't told anyone about the tag. Not her coworkers. Not even Emma, her older sister. Who would believe her? A classified government dog with a military chip and cognitive enhancements. It sounded ridiculous, but Buddy was different. She'd seen it, felt it. He responded to things with a level of understanding that went beyond instinct. He didn't just listen. He tracked conversations. He moved when he anticipated needs. He watched Ethan like he knew the boy was broken and had made it his mission to protect him. And Ethan was healing, more every day. Maya couldn't shake the feeling that the government wasn't just going to let that go. The next morning was cool and misty, the kind of fog that hangs just above the grass and makes the world feel quiet. Ethan was feeding Buddy pieces of banana from his cereal bowl, giggling softly each time the dog licked his fingers. Buddy wagged his tail once slow and steady. Maya poured herself a cup of coffee and sat down at the table watching the two of them. Then she saw something strange. Buddy's ears pricked up. His head turned not toward the boy, not toward the food, but toward the front window. He stood slowly, body tense, and growled. Low, quiet, a sound that rumbled more like thunder than warning. Buddy, Maya whispered, rising from her chair. What is it? He didn't move. She stepped to the window. Outside, parked 2 houses down, was a black sedan with tinted windows. It hadn't been there the night before. Her heart pounded. Coincidence? Maybe, but her gut said otherwise. Buddy was still staring at it, tail stiff, body alert. Ethan, Maya said gently, trying to hide the tremor in her voice. Go get your backpack. We might visit Aunt Emma today. Why, Ethan asked. She smiled tightly. Just a little trip. Pack your favorite toy. He nodded and went down the hallway. Buddy didn't move from the window. The black sedan remained parked. And Maya realized with perfect clarity they knew. Whoever they were, they knew exactly where Buddy was. And now they were coming. By 10:43 a.m., the black sedan had moved. It was now parked directly across the street, its glossy body gleaming beneath the maple trees. The windows stayed rolled up, so dark you couldn't see a thing inside. Not even a shadow. Maya had watched it all morning, watched as her coffee grew cold in her hands as Buddy paced from window to window like a sentinel. Something was wrong. He could feel it, and so could she. She hadn't told Ethan. He was curled up in the living room building a Lego fire station while Buddy hovered nearby like a 4-legged bodyguard. She kept glancing at the clock. Her heart raced with every passing minute. Whoever was in that car wasn't just waiting, they were watching. And then just before 11:00 a.m., the driver's side door finally opened. He stepped out slowly. A tall man in a perfectly pressed charcoal suit with salt and pepper hair and posture so straight it screamed military. He wore sunglasses, but Maya didn't need to see his eyes to know he meant business. In his hand, he held a thin black folder and something else, a small blinking device that looked like a remote or scanner. Buddy's reaction was immediate. The dog began to tremble, not out of fear, but something more primal, recognition. His ears flattened, his eyes locked on the man. A low growl rumbled deep in his chest. "Buddy," Maya whispered. "What is it?" The dog moved to stand in front of Ethan, placing his body protectively between the boy and the front door. The doorbell rang. Once calm, controlled, Maya's blood ran cold. She stepped slowly toward the door and peeked through the peephole. The man stood perfectly still, glancing down at his device, then up again. His expression was unreadable. "Mrs. Thompson," he called, his voice deep and clear. "My name is Agent Morrison. I'm with a federal agency that tracks lost government property. I need to speak with you about a dog currently in your possession." Maya didn't respond. "Not yet." Behind her, she could hear Ethan whispering softly to Buddy. "It's okay. I'm here. You're safe." Buddy didn't move. "Mrs. Thompson," the man repeated, this time louder. "I'm not here to harm anyone, but the dog you're harboring belongs to the United States government." Maya's hands clenched into fists. He didn't say adopted. He didn't say lost. He said harboring, like she was hiding a fugitive. She opened the door only 2 inches, just enough for her voice to carry. "I don't know what you're talking about," she said. "This dog followed us home. He's a stray." Agent Morrison didn't blink. "That animal is designated K9T0741. He is not a stray. He escaped from a classified research facility 3 weeks ago." "Escaped," Maya repeated. "From what?" "I'm not at liberty to say," Morrison replied. "But the subject was part of an advanced behavioral program. The tag embedded under his fur proves his identity." Maya stepped forward, slightly blocking the view inside with her shoulder. "Well, I'm not turning him over to you. He's been abused, hurt. My son is finally talking again because of that dog. You want to tell me that's just a coincidence?" Morrison's jaw tightened. "I understand this is emotional for you, but you're in possession of government property worth nearly $2 million in research and development." Maya let out a dry laugh. "He's not a laptop. He's a living creature. And his name is Buddy." The agent sighed. He wasn't rattled. Not yet. "If you cooperate," he said, "we'll retrieve the subject without legal consequences. If you refuse, I'll be forced to escalate." Maya's stomach dropped. "Escalate? You're threatening a mother and her child over a dog?" "Ma'am," Morrison said almost robotically, "the subject poses unknown risks. His enhancements make him unpredictable in uncontrolled environments. It is in the best interest of national security that we take him back into custody." That was when Ethan appeared beside her, holding tightly to Buddy's collar. His small face was pale, but his eyes were steady. "Buddy's not dangerous," he said clearly, his voice stronger than Maya had ever heard. Morrison raised an eyebrow. "Son, this is an adult matter." "He saved me," Ethan interrupted. "He made me talk again." The agent was silent for a long moment. Then he reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a collar, not leather or nylon, but high-tech with blinking lights and what looked like a data port. "This is a neural control device," Morrison explained. "It will allow us to manage the subject's behavior during transport." The words were clinical, cold. Buddy whimpered, his body tensed. And Maya saw something terrifying in the dog's eyes, fear. Not of pain, but of returning. "You're not putting that thing on him," Maya snapped. "Ma'am, I highly advise you." "No," she shouted, stepping forward. "I don't care what you call him. He's not yours and he's not going anywhere." Morrison's tone changed, hardening. "You're interfering with a federal operation. You are dangerously close to obstruction." "Then call your backup," Maya challenged, her voice shaking. "Call whoever you need. But you're not taking him from my son." Just then, Buddy stepped forward. His body, low tail, stiff eyes locked on Morrison like a soldier standing between his family and an intruder. Maya could feel it, something shifted. Buddy wasn't just guarding. He was calculating, reading the man's every micro-expression, every twitch of his muscles. He growled again, low, threatening. And Morrison didn't move. It was subtle, but Maya saw it, the flicker of uncertainty in the agent's posture. For the first time, he hesitated. "This is exactly why the subject must return," he said carefully. "He's becoming volatile." "No," Maya said, her voice steadier now. "He's becoming aware." Morrison took a step back, slipping the collar into his coat. "I'll give you one more chance," he said. "Turn him over peacefully, or this becomes official." "I won't give you anything," Maya said. Ethan stepped forward and wrapped both arms around Buddy's neck. "He's my friend," the boy whispered. "You can't take my friend." Maya looked down at the two of them, boy and dog. Broken once, but healing now. Together. She knew then she couldn't stay. Not here. Not while they were being watched, tracked, studied. The only way to protect them both was to disappear. Morrison took one last look, then turned without a word. He walked calmly back to the black sedan and got in. The car didn't leave. It simply sat there, waiting, watching. Maya slammed the door shut, locked it, and leaned her forehead against the wood, shaking. Her life had just changed, again. And this time, it was war. Maya didn't sleep that night. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Agent Morrison's face, cold and determined, and the blinking collar he pulled from his jacket, like it was just another tool in his kit. As if he were about to leash a robot, not a living, breathing soul with a heartbeat. Every creak of the house made her flinch. Every car that passed outside had her checking the curtains. And Buddy, he barely moved from his post near Ethan's bedroom door. He lay stretched across the hallway, body tense, ears twitching at every sound. Not sleeping, not resting, guarding. By morning, the black sedan was still there. Same place, same angle, as if it had never left. Maya knew what that meant. They were giving her time to comply voluntarily. Maybe 24 hours, 48 if she was lucky. Then they'd return, not to ask, but to take. She looked over at Ethan, still sleeping, his arms loosely draped around Buddy's neck. The German shepherd's eyes were open, though watchful and still. They both knew it. Time was running out. After breakfast, Maya made her decision. They had to disappear. She grabbed a backpack from the closet and began stuffing it with clothes, just enough for 3 or 4 days. Essentials only. One of Ethan's jackets, his favorite plush dinosaur, his asthma medication, a few snacks from the kitchen pantry. She moved on autopilot like she'd been preparing for this moment her entire life without realizing it. Buddy sat silently, tail still, eyes locked on her every move. When Ethan woke and saw what was happening, his face crumpled with confusion. "Mommy, are we leaving?" Maya forced a smile. "We're going to visit Aunt Emma, remember, just for a little while." He looked from her to Buddy, then back again. Because of the man. She froze. He had known. Of course he had. Ethan might not have spoken much in years, but he observed everything. "Yes," she admitted softly, kneeling down. "But it's okay. We're going to a safe place. Somewhere the man can't find us." Ethan nodded, clutching Buddy's collar instinctively. The dog leaned into him, giving a soft breath, almost like a sigh. Maya pulled her phone out and dialed her sister Emma. She answered on the second ring. "Hey, it's been forever," Emma said cheerfully. "You okay?" Maya didn't waste time. "No, I need help. We need to stay with you for a few days, maybe more." There was a pause. "Are you in danger?" "What, you know?" They're reaching in. "Not yet, but someone's watching the house, government type. It's about the dog." Emma's tone changed immediately. "Pack and come now. You know where the spare key is. I'll explain everything when we get there." "You'd better," Emma muttered, but there was no anger, only worry. By noon, Maya had loaded Ethan and Buddy into her car, an aging blue Honda Civic that rattled whenever she braked too hard. She drove slowly out of the neighborhood, avoiding direct eye contact with the black sedan. But she felt it, they were being watched. As she turned the corner, she caught a glimpse in her rearview mirror. The sedan still hadn't moved. But something in her gut told her they weren't staying put. The road to Emma's cabin took them north, past the edge of town, and through the old logging trails that snaked deep into the pine-covered hills. Emma had inherited the place from their uncle's small rustic 2 bedrooms, off-grid in some ways, but cozy and remote. It was surrounded by nothing but trees and silence. No prying eyes, no cell towers, no government agents. It would have to do. Ethan didn't speak much on the drive. He kept one hand on Buddy's back the entire time, stroking his fur like it grounded him. Maya glanced at them through the mirror, boy and dog bound by something she couldn't fully explain. Maybe didn't need to. They arrived around 3 p.m. Emma was already on the porch, flannel shirt rolled at the sleeves, hair pulled back in a tight ponytail. A veterinary tech by trade, she was good under pressure and better with animals than most people. Her eyes widened the moment she saw Buddy. "You weren't kidding," she said. "That's not just any dog." "He's different," Maya said. Emma stepped forward, squatted down, and reached out slowly. Buddy sniffed her hand, then gently nudged it with his head. "I've met thousands of dogs," Emma said. "This one knows what's going on." Inside, the cabin smelled like pine wood and brewed tea. Maya dropped the bags by the door, her shoulders finally sagging with the weight of adrenaline. "Okay," Emma said, arms crossed. "Now tell me everything." And so Maya did. From the forest trail to the bullies. From the first time Ethan spoke to the discovery of the military tag. From the cryptic forum warnings to the confrontation at the door. She left nothing out. When she finished, Emma was silent. Then she stood, walked to the kitchen, poured 2 mugs of coffee and returned. "Jesus," she said finally, "you're not crazy. This is real." Maya nodded slowly. "I didn't want to believe it either. But Buddy's, he's not normal. He understands us. All of us." Emma took a sip of coffee. "So what now? We hide, we keep him safe. And maybe we figure out the truth." Later that evening, while Ethan and Buddy napped in the guest room, Maya pulled the tag from her pocket. She'd kept it hidden wrapped in a washcloth. Emma took it, turning it over in her hand, her brow furrowing. "This isn't just an ID tag," she said. "It looks like a tracker." "What do you mean?" "I mean, if this thing's active, they don't need to follow you by car. They've known exactly where you are, every second." Maya felt the blood drain from her face. "You think it's in him?" Emma nodded. "Most likely. Subcutaneous, somewhere near the neck. We have to take it out." Emma hesitated. "I can try. I've done microchip removals before. But I'm not a surgeon. If it's deep or embedded..." "I don't care," Maya said, her voice cracking. "If that thing is broadcasting his location, they'll find us again. We have to." That night, while Ethan slept soundly with Buddy curled against him, Emma prepped the kitchen counter like a makeshift surgery table. They rolled Buddy gently onto his side. He didn't resist. He just looked at Maya with those dark eyes, trusting her completely. The moment Emma found the small bump beneath the fur, Maya knew. It was real. Emma made a shallow incision. Maya held Buddy's head gently, whispering the whole time, "You're okay. We're here. We've got you." 10 minutes later, Emma held up a tiny metallic cylinder, no bigger than a vitamin capsule. "Got it." She dropped it into a mason jar and sealed the lid. Then they both exhaled. Maya didn't sleep that night either, but this time it was different. Not fear, not anxiety, but focus. She knew they'd be back. Maybe tomorrow, maybe next week. But the government didn't just let go of $2 million projects, so she had to be ready. And Buddy? He was ready too. Whatever he truly was, he had chosen Ethan. And Maya would fight like hell to make sure no one ever took him away. The days that followed felt almost peaceful. Maya hadn't felt that way in years, not since before Ethan stopped speaking. Before her ex-husband disappeared, before her world became one long string of shifts, therapy appointments, and unanswered prayers. At Emma's cabin, tucked away in the thick woods of Northern California, time slowed. Ethan woke up smiling. Buddy moved easier now that his leg was healing. And for the first time, Maya could sit on the porch with a cup of coffee and feel something resembling hope. Still, it wasn't perfect, not by a long shot. She was constantly listening for tires on gravel, helicopters overhead, static from a hidden radio. Emma had removed the tracking chip, yes, but that didn't erase the fact that someone, some agency had invested time, money, and likely classified tech into Buddy. They weren't going to forget him. One evening, after a quiet dinner of grilled cheese and tomato soup, Ethan sat cross-legged on the floor, coloring a picture of Buddy beside a big red fire truck. "He wants to be a helper," Ethan explained carefully, drawing a gold badge on Buddy's collar. "Like the dogs at the airport, or like police dogs." "That's a good idea," Maya said, leaning over to admire his work. "He's already helping so much." Ethan nodded solemnly. "He's brave. He keeps the scary dreams away." Buddy wagged his tail softly at the words, then curled up beside Ethan, resting his head in the boy's lap. Maya caught the moment, one of hundreds since the trail, where it was clear the two shared more than affection. There was communication, subtle but powerful. They were in sync in a way that couldn't be explained by coincidence. And that's when Maya remembered what the message board had said. Some subjects from Project Mindbridge were showing signs of telepathic connection with their handlers. She had laughed at it then. She wasn't laughing now. That night, Maya had the dream again. The one where the man in the suit stood at her front door holding that collar. Only this time, he was surrounded by faceless agents in black tactical gear. Their boots stomped through her home. They pulled Buddy away from Ethan while the boys screamed and clawed at their arms. She woke up covered in sweat, heart thundering. It was still dark outside. 3:11 a.m. She walked quietly to Ethan's room just to check. There he was sleeping soundly, hand resting on Buddy's thick fur. Buddy opened one eye, lifted his head, and looked at Maya like he already knew why she was there. She knelt beside him, whispered, "You okay, boy?" Buddy didn't move. He just leaned forward and pressed his forehead against hers. And for the first time in her life, Maya didn't just feel a bond. She felt something deeper. A sense of calm, a message without words. We're safe, for now. The next day, Emma came back from town with groceries and a surprise. "I talked to someone," she said, unloading paper bags onto the counter. "A friend of mine from vet school. He's a tech guy now. Builds stuff for off-grid communities. Solar rigs, signal blockers, weird gadgets." Maya raised an eyebrow. "Okay." Emma pulled a small metal box from her duffel. It looked like a cross between a modem and a toaster. "He built this for me years ago when I had a Stalker X. Scrambles digital signals within a 100-foot radius, kills GPS surveillance drones trackers. Might not stop a satellite, but if anyone's scanning from nearby, it'll mess with their feed. Maya blinked. You had a stalker ex. Emma smirked. Let's just say I've had my share of bad decisions. They plugged the device in and waited. The lights blinked to life. A low hum filled the air, almost imperceptible, like the buzz of an old refrigerator. From now on, Emma said, we're a black hole. For a while, things stayed quiet. Ethan kept talking more and more every day. Not just to Buddy, but to Maya, to Emma. Sometimes full sentences, sometimes questions. At one point, he even asked if he could have a birthday party this year. He hadn't said that in 3 birthdays. Buddy's wounds healed beautifully. His coat regained its sheen. His limp faded to almost nothing. And then something extraordinary happened. One morning while Ethan was playing outside, Maya and Emma were sipping coffee on the porch. Buddy was lying nearby in the grass, sun on his back, eyes half closed. Maya said aloud, I think we need to go public. Emma nearly choked on her coffee. Come again. I mean it, Maya said. Tell someone. A reporter maybe, a real one. Are you nuts? Emma hissed. Maya, we're hiding from the federal government. Going public is like walking into a courthouse and yelling, please arrest me. I know it sounds crazy, but think about it, Maya said. If we expose this Project Mindbridge, the tag, the way they threatened to take him back, if we put it all out there, they can't silence us quietly. Emma looked doubtful. You'd have to trust the media, someone willing to run it. I think I know someone. Maya hadn't talked to Sarah Chen in almost 5 years, but she hadn't forgotten her. Sarah was a veteran investigative reporter, won awards for exposing a corrupt judge, shut down a private prison scheme, wrote a viral story about toxic waste dumping on native land. The woman had guts and credibility. Maya still had her email. She typed out the message at 2 a.m. after pacing the cabin for an hour. She didn't mention Buddy by name, just told Sarah she had information about a secret military experiment involving enhanced animals and that she needed to talk. Urgently. Sarah responded within 20 minutes. Where are you? Can you prove it's real? I'll come to you. Bring cameras. They agreed to meet in 3 days at an abandoned ranger station 40 miles away, remote enough to avoid detection, public enough to avoid ambush. Maya told Ethan the truth in pieces. We're going to meet someone who can help us tell Buddy's story. Ethan didn't ask many questions. He just nodded and said, Buddy says it's the right thing. Maya blinked. He says, Ethan shrugged. Not with words, it's just, like I know what he's thinking. And Maya believed him. The day before the meeting, they packed the car in silence. Ethan kissed Emma on the cheek, promised to draw her a new picture when they got back. Buddy sat in the back seat beside the boy, watching the woods pass by with quiet intensity. They reached the ranger station just before sunset. The place was falling apart, peeling paint, a rusted roof, but it had one thing: Maya needed a wide-open view of the road in all directions. Sarah pulled up 10 minutes later in a dusty Jeep with a GoPro clipped to her dash and a body cam strapped to her vest. She stepped out, adjusted her windbreaker, and nodded toward the dog. That's him, Maya nodded. Sarah took one look at Buddy, then at Ethan, and said, let's get to work. Sarah Chen didn't blink as Buddy sat down in front of her, ears perked, posture perfect. They were inside the old ranger station now, dusty floor, broken glass on one windowsill, and the scent of pine thick in the air. Sarah had already set up 2 cameras, one on a tripod facing the 3 of them, Maya, Ethan, and Buddy, and the other on a handheld stabilizer she kept slung over her shoulder. I've reported on whistleblowers, corporate corruption, even a stolen fighter jet, once Sarah said, clicking her mic into place. But this might top them all. Maya sat on the edge of a splintered bench, her hands clasped around a lukewarm thermos. Her nerves were vibrating. Ethan sat cross-legged on the floor next to Buddy, who was watching Sarah the way he watched every new person, measured, quiet, present. I'm not sure how much you'll believe, Maya said. Sarah smiled slightly. Maya, you emailed me with words like classified military dog and illegal government program. You had my attention before I finished reading. They started with the basics. The trail, the boys, Ethan's first word in years. Maya described the tag, the code, the night Agent Morrison showed up at her door with a collar that looked like it belonged in a lab, not a kennel. Sarah filmed everything. Do you still have the tag, she asked. Maya nodded and pulled it from her coat pocket, wrapped in the same cloth she'd used to hide it since that night. Sarah took one look and muttered, yep, that's not from PetSmart. Then Maya paused. There's more, she said carefully. Things I can't explain, things I felt. Buddy stood and walked to her side, sitting beside her knees like he knew what was coming. Maya turned to Sarah and said softly, he communicates. Not just body language, not just obedience. It's like he thinks in feelings, and somehow we understand each other. Sarah raised an eyebrow. And then Ethan spoke. Sometimes he talks in pictures, the boy said, like it was the most obvious thing in the world. In my head. Not loud, but like thoughts. Sarah turned her camera toward Ethan. Can you give me an example, she asked gently. Ethan nodded. When that man came to take him, Buddy told me not to be afraid. He didn't use words, but I saw a picture in my brain. Of us, running together. It made me feel strong. Sarah looked at Maya. Okay, she said finally, I believe you. Now let's make the world believe too. The interview lasted 2 hours. Sarah asked every question she could think of, details about the chip, the message board, the confrontation with Agent Morrison, the escape into the woods. She was methodical, smart, tough. But what sealed the deal wasn't Maya's story. It wasn't even the tag. It was Buddy himself. Near the end of filming, Sarah stepped outside to grab a fresh battery. When she returned, she found Ethan holding a blank sketch pad sitting in the corner of the room. Buddy was beside him, unmoving. Ethan looked up. Buddy says he wants to show you something. Sarah blinked. Okay. The boy began drawing. He didn't speak. Didn't look up. Just let the pencil move. 5 minutes passed. Then 10. And when he finally turned the sketch pad toward her, Sarah nearly dropped the camera. The drawing showed a white room with cold steel tables, dogs in cages, men in lab coats, a series of wires connected to one dog's head, and in the middle, a collar. Sarah didn't speak for a long time. Finally, she said, that's not a child's imagination. That's a memory, and it's not his. Maya nodded. Yeah, it's Buddy's. They uploaded the raw footage to an encrypted drive. Sarah had connections, editors, lawyers, whistleblower networks, a secure publishing partner on the East Coast. I need 48 hours, she said. After that, this will be on every major outlet from here to DC. Maya exhaled. She hadn't realized she'd been holding her breath for 2 days straight. Sarah stood, gathered her gear, then paused. They're going to come for you. Once this story breaks, they'll know exactly where to look. Are you ready for that? Maya glanced at Ethan, who had one arm wrapped around Buddy's neck. No, she said honestly. But I'm not going to live in fear anymore. Sarah nodded. Good answer. They left the ranger station under cover of dusk. Sarah took a different route, heading east toward the highway. Maya loaded Ethan and Buddy into the back seat and drove west back into the pine woods. She didn't say a word the whole ride. Neither did Buddy. He didn't need to. The next morning it happened. The story dropped at 6:02 a.m. Exclusive mother claims secret military project created telepathic dog. At first it looked like just another internet headline, but Sarah had done her homework. The article wasn't fluff, it was airtight. It included photos of the tag, video of the interview, audio of Ethan whispering his first words to Buddy, a side-by-side breakdown of other rumored animal enhancement programs from the last decade. The comment section exploded. By noon, the story had been shared over 300,000 times. By nightfall, it was the lead segment on 4 national networks. And the government's response, predictable. They denied everything, issued a bland statement. The Department of Defense does not engage in experiments involving telepathic communication with animals. Any claims to the contrary are fabricated. But the internet wasn't buying it. Sarah's footage had struck a nerve. Activists began organizing protests. Justice for Buddy started trending. People began sharing stories, similar encounters, strange animal behavior, classified research claims. One woman in Arizona claimed her late father had worked on Project Whisper, which sounded a lot like Mindbridge. The story had legs, and it was running. 2 days later, Maya and Ethan were still at the cabin. But the peace was gone. They knew what was coming. That evening, as the sun dipped behind the trees, Buddy began pacing. Not nervous, focused. Like a soldier waiting for orders. And then they heard it. A knock. 3 raps. Firm, deliberate. Not from the front door. From the back. Maya froze. Emma reached for the old shotgun they kept in the closet. Ethan clutched Buddy's fur. The dog didn't growl, didn't move. He just stared at the door. And then Maya heard it. A voice inside her head. Not loud. Not scary. Just there. Let me talk to them. She blinked. Buddy, she whispered aloud. The dog turned, made eye contact, and she knew it wasn't her imagination. Trust me, the voice repeated. Buddy walked to the door, sat down, and waited. Maya placed her hand on the doorknob, then opened it. 2 men stood outside, one in a gray tactical vest, the other in a windbreaker with an unmarked badge clipped to his collar. Neither of them smiled, but neither of them reached for a weapon either. Mrs. Thompson, the taller man, said, "We'd like to talk." Maya stepped aside. Buddy didn't move. Ethan stood just behind her, eyes wide but steady. As the men entered, Buddy turned to face them, and something passed between them. Not fear, But command. The taller man flinched, just slightly. Then he nodded almost like an involuntary reflex. Buddy had spoken to him too. Maya realized in that moment that the dog she rescued in the woods had once been the government's most powerful experiment. But now, he wasn't an experiment anymore. He was a choice. And he chose them. The taller man's name was Agent Monroe. The one behind him was Specialist Vargas. Neither of them smiled. Neither of them sat. They weren't here for coffee and cookies. Maya stood by the wood stove, arms folded, doing her best to look unimpressed. Ethan sat beside Buddy on the floor, eyes flicking from one man to the other, as if he already sensed what was coming. Buddy stayed still, shoulders square, posture alert, as if ready for orders, but bound by something deeper. Agent Monroe cleared his throat. "We're not here to cause trouble, Mrs. Thompson." Maya raised an eyebrow. "Really, you knock on a back door in the middle of the night without ID, without a warrant, and say you want to talk?" Monroe hesitated, then he gestured to Buddy. "We're here for him." Emma shifted slightly behind them, shotgun still leaning against the doorframe. She hadn't put it down. "We're aware of your recent exposure," Monroe continued. "Ms. Chen's article put a target on your back. Not just from us, but from groups far less accountable." "Like who?" Maya asked. He didn't answer. Instead, Specialist Vargas pulled a small device from his coat, looked like a miniature projector, and placed it on the table. With a tap, it lit up the room in a soft blue glow. A 3D image of a facility blinked into view, sterile, gray, windowless. Dogs in cages, metal doors, high-tech security systems. "This is Base 7, Vargas said quietly. "One of the remaining Mindbridge units." Ethan sucked in a breath. Maya didn't look away. "I thought it was shut down." "It was renamed," Monroe corrected. "Technically, it doesn't exist. But there are still 11 dogs in that facility. Not all of them made it through like your companion." He glanced at Buddy but didn't meet his eyes. Buddy stood and walked toward the projection. He didn't growl, didn't bark. But something happened. The projection shimmered. The room flickered. And all at once, everyone present felt it. A low vibration, not in their ears but in their bones. Maya gasped softly. Emma grabbed the edge of the counter. Monroe staggered. Even Vargas blinked as if momentarily blinded. And then a voice. Not out loud. Inside their heads. "I remember that place." Everyone turned. Buddy stood in the center of the room, backlit by the blue glow eyes, calm, unwavering. "I remember the cages, the training, the pain, and I remember the others. Some are still there, waiting." Ethan stood slowly, his voice barely above a whisper. "You can do it to them too." Buddy looked at the boy and everyone else felt the pulse of his reply. "Only if they're open." Monroe's hand trembled as he turned off the projector. This is beyond anything our team ever confirmed. They told us telepathic resonance was a theory, that the neurological links were random. Vargas muttered, "Not random, chosen." Maya stepped forward, heart pounding. "So what now? Are you going to take him back?" There was silence. Then Monroe said, "We're not here to take him. We're here to ask him if he's willing to go." It wasn't the answer she expected. Monroe sat down, finally rubbing his forehead like a man under orders he no longer believed in. "Do you have any idea what this dog represents?" he said. "He's not a pet. He's not even a prototype. He's the result of over a decade of neural resonance research, black budget funding, and tech that shouldn't exist outside DARPA labs." And yet Maya snapped. "He was tossed like garbage, shot at, hunted." "I don't disagree," Monroe said, glancing at Buddy. "But what's coming next when people realize what he is will be 10 times worse. If foreign intelligence gets wind of this, if contractors start cloning neural models, he won't be safe. Neither will you." Buddy took 2 steps forward. The room fell quiet again. "Then help me stop them." It was not a plea. It was a command, but one wrapped in dignity, measured strength, a leader's voice. Vargas swallowed. "You want to go back?" "Not to surrender, to free them." Monroe looked at Maya. "He's asking us to help him break into one of the most secure black sites in North America." Maya didn't blink. "He's not asking, he's leading." For the next 3 hours, a plan took shape. Buddy would return to Base 7 not as an escaped asset, but as bait. Monroe still had partial clearance. Vargas had contacts who could manipulate the transport logs. The idea was simple in theory, impossible in practice. Smuggle Buddy back inside, locate the remaining K9s, disrupt the system from within, and get everyone out. A tactical extraction. A one-way ticket in. No guarantee of a way out. Ethan didn't want him to go. He held Buddy tightly that night, curled up beside him on the floor, whispering stories about superheroes and firefighters and birthday wishes. "I don't want you to be brave," he said softly. "I just want you to be here." Buddy nudged the boy's hand with his nose. "I'll come back, I promise." Before dawn, Maya packed a small bag, dog food, first aid, Ethan's drawing of Buddy in a cape. "You sure about this?" she asked, kneeling to clip a harness to Buddy's chest. "It's what I was made for, but now I choose it." Monroe arrived in an unmarked SUV. Vargas was in the passenger seat typing on a secure tablet. Buddy climbed in without hesitation. Just before the door closed, he turned to Ethan, and the boy smiled, small, tearful. "I'll leave the porch light on." As the SUV disappeared down the dirt road, Maya sat on the front step with Ethan tucked against her side, wrapped in a blanket. Emma came out with a thermos of coffee and a bag of marshmallows. "What now?" she asked. Maya exhaled. "Now we wait, and we trust him." Later that afternoon, while the sun slipped low behind the trees, Maya received a message on the old satellite phone Monroe had left behind. "He's in." The SUV rumbled down the gravel service road like it had 1,000 times before, except this time, it wasn't transporting a piece of military hardware. It was escorting a leader. Buddy sat between Agent Monroe and Specialist Vargas Harness. Snug head-lifted eyes focused ahead like a soldier entering familiar territory. The moment they passed the unmarked checkpoint, Buddy didn't bark, didn't twitch, but he felt it. The electromagnetic fencing, the scent of antiseptic and cold steel, the air thin, artificial. Base 7 hadn't changed, but he had. Monroe glanced down at the laptop on his lap. "We've got 5 minutes before perimeter scan. That's all I can spoof without triggering flags." Vargas nodded from the driver's seat. "Once we're in, I can jam surveillance for about 30 seconds, enough for Buddy to vanish." Monroe hesitated. "You sure about this, big guy?" Buddy didn't move. He didn't need to respond. The SUV pulled up to a garage bay disguised as an old maintenance depot. A guard waved them in lazily, scanning a clipboard and yawning. Monroe flashed a forged clearance badge and grunted, "Unit T-0741, returning for post-retrieval cognitive analysis." The guard didn't even look up. The gate opened. Inside the bay, the world changed. Gone were the trees, the wind, the sounds of birds. Here it was all concrete, sealed doors, fluorescent lights, and buzzing silence. Monroe checked the time. 27 seconds. Vargas tapped his screen, disabling camera loop. Now. Buddy sprang from the back seat with silent precision, moving like smoke through the exit hatch they'd pre-opened in the bay wall. Monroe stood tall. "He's in. God help us." Down a narrow hallway lined with reinforced glass, Buddy moved with memory guiding his steps. Every junction, every vent, every temperature shift, it came back to him like a language once lost and now reclaimed. As he padded past room B12, he paused. Behind the glass, a female Labrador sat on her haunches motionless. Her eyes blinked. Once. Recognition. "Juno." He pressed his forehead to the glass. She rose and stepped forward, her gaze sharp and clearing like fog lifting from a mirror. "Buddy, I thought you were gone." "I escaped. I came back. We're getting out." He moved fast now. The hallway curved into a central hub, what the handlers used to call the cage. 4 dogs, all restrained, all drugged, but not broken. They felt him before they saw him, a pulse like sonar through water. "Wake up." A Doberman's ear twitched, a husky stirred eyes fluttering. "Get ready, we leave tonight." The room shivered, not from sound but from will. Buddy turned and darted up the stairwell toward the server room. That's where the link was, where everything about Mindbridge, every file, every experiment, every mistake was stored, and where he could take it down. Back at the cabin, Maya stared at the satellite phone, her heart thudding in her throat. No signal, just a static. Ethan was curled beside her on the couch holding a hand-drawn comic titled Buddy the Brave. Maya smiled even through her anxiety. A knock broke the silence. Emma opened the front door. Sarah Chen stood on the porch, out of breath, snowflakes on her coat. "You need to turn on the TV." All major networks had stopped normal programming. Even cable news was running the same live feed. Breaking massive blackout reported at secure government facility in Nevada. Unconfirmed reports of breach and classified data dump. Animal welfare protests surge in D.C. sparked by whistleblower journalist Sarah Chen's earlier expose. Sarah turned to Maya. "You started something." Maya shook her head slowly. "He started something. We just followed." Back inside, Base 7 alarms howled like dying wolves. Red strobes bathed the hallway in emergency light. Technicians scrambled. Security teams roared commands. But Buddy was already inside the mainframe room. Wires dangled from the walls. Cooling systems hissed. And at the center, a high-security data port blinked with green and amber lights. He leapt onto the terminal platform, a flicker in his vision. Access memory node. He remembered how it worked. The interface responded not to passwords but to biometric resonance. Designed only for connected K9s. Designed only for him. Buddy closed his eyes. Miles away, Monroe's laptop began receiving data. Encrypted files, timestamps, audio logs, videos, evidence of pain, testimony without words, proof. The truth could no longer be denied. Inside, the kennel wing cages slid open one by one. Juno stepped out first, then the Doberman, the husky, a spaniel with one blind eye. None of them barked. They just moved like soldiers in a silent army. Buddy returned through the central corridor, leading them all, and the building trembled not from structural failure, but from the weight of freedom. At the emergency exit, Vargas waited with a stolen clearance card. "Never thought I'd see this," he muttered. As the dogs approached, he stepped aside. "Go now." Buddy passed him, pausing just long enough to meet his gaze. "Thank you." Vargas blinked, and for the first time in years, maybe ever, he smiled. "You're welcome, Sergeant." They emerged from the west side of the complex under cover of fog. An unmarked van, already running, waited in the field beyond the fence. Monroe was at the wheel. Buddy helped each dog climb in. The last aboard was Juno. As the doors closed, Monroe turned. "You got what you needed." Buddy looked at him, and the agent nodded. "Yeah, I guess you always did." That night, while the van disappeared down a mountain highway, headlines broke again. Secret facility raided, experimental K9 programs exposed. Sarah Chen releases full data drop to public servers. Activists demand legal protections for enhanced animals. The world had changed, and it wasn't going back. At the cabin, the phone lit up. "Incoming transmission secure," Maya answered. A single word appeared on the screen. "Free." She dropped into the chair, heartful eyes wet. "He did it." Ethan clutched her hand. "Is he coming back?" She smiled. "Soon." 3 weeks had passed since the blackout at Base 7. The media firestorm hadn't stopped since. On every major channel, anchors debated the same question. Are these dogs property or something more? It wasn't just about Buddy anymore. With the files, Sarah Chen published videos, internal memos, even recorded brainwave experiments. It was clear the government had crossed lines the public hadn't known existed. News outlets dubbed it the Canine Sentience Scandal. But at Maya's cabin, far from the noise, far from DC or Hollywood, think Peace's life was quieter, more cautious. Buddy hadn't returned yet, and each day that passed without him felt heavier. Ethan still set 2 bowls at breakfast, one for himself, one for Buddy. Sometimes he'd whisper at the empty spot on the floor, as if sending thoughts through space. Maya didn't stop him. She did the same thing, just silently, with every beat of her heart. Emma stayed longer than planned. She was supposed to return to Seattle 2 weeks ago, but after watching Maya nearly crumble during a storm, eyes fixed on the tree line waiting for movement, she stayed. "Don't worry about the bakery," she'd said. "I've got 2 teenagers and a sourdough starter that runs itself." One gray morning, the post office left a single envelope in their roadside box. No name, no return address, just a wax seal, military, but scratched out. Inside was a single sheet of paper, a printed flight itinerary. One way, Oakland to Washington, D.C., date 2 days from now. Along with the itinerary, a handwritten note. "He asked for you to be there, Monroe." Maya didn't sleep that night. She packed a duffel bag and sat in the living room for hours watching Ethan draw cartoon dogs on printer paper. He handed her one just before bed, Buddy in a cape flying over the Capitol building. "He's not just a hero," Ethan whispered. "He's a legend." Maya kissed the top of his head. "That's exactly what I needed to hear." The flight to D.C. was bumpy, the city even bumpier. Posters lined the streets near Capitol Hill. Protesters stood outside federal buildings holding signs like, "Dogs aren't tools. Buddy for Congress. Free the 11. The story had become a movement. Animal rights activists, veterans groups, families of former handlers. Even a few retired scientists had come forward with tearful apologies and damning testimony. But what shocked Maya most was what she saw when she stepped out of the taxi near the Supreme Court building. There, standing beside Sarah Chen and Agent Monroe, was Buddy. His coat had been cleaned, his wounds healed, his eyes brighter than ever. But his presence, commanding, even surrounded by hundreds of people, camera flashes, and reporters barking questions, Buddy stood tall, still dignified. He spotted Maya instantly. And just like that, the rest of the world blurred. She ran. dropped her bag on the sidewalk and ran through the chaos through the crowd until she dropped to her knees in front of him. He leaned forward, nose against her forehead, just like that first night in the cabin, and she heard it clear as thunder behind her eyes. "I'm home." Ethan had stayed back with Emma, but Maya could feel him in this moment. This was for him, too. Sarah stepped forward with a small smile. "They're ready." "Ready for what?" "Your testimony. You're not just a witness now, you're part of the case." What followed was a whirlwind of briefings, interviews, and courtrooms. Maya testified before a bipartisan committee investigating Project Mindbridge. She told them about the night they found Buddy, about the tag, the threats, the way he protected Ethan when no one else could. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She just told the truth. And the room full of senators, aides, and military brass sat in stunned silence. When she finished, Buddy walked to her side and laid down at her feet. And everyone knew. This wasn't just a dog. This was someone. 2 days later, a bill was introduced. The K-9 Autonomy and Protection Act. It proposed federal recognition of sentient, non-human intelligence. It demanded rights. It required independent oversight for all animal research and immediate release of the surviving dogs from Project Mindbridge. The public exploded. The president issued a statement. Within hours, the hashtag #HisNotProperty trended worldwide. But not everyone agreed. At a press conference, a Defense Department spokesperson warned, "We are entering dangerous territory when we blur the line between animals and soldiers. These dogs were trained for war, not peace, not families, and certainly not politics." That night, a government insider leaked a disturbing memo. Plans to reacquire or terminate Mindbridge assets if public sentiment shifted. The danger wasn't over. Maya knew Buddy couldn't return to the cabin, not yet. He was too visible now. But she was determined not to let the government erase him again. So she agreed to take the stage at a major rally in Washington Square. Sarah Chen would host. Lawmakers would attend. And at the end, Buddy would speak. Not with a mic, not with sound, but with presence, with memory, with connection. The day of the rally was electric. Over 10,000 people gathered in the square. Screens streamed it nationwide. Kids wore t-shirts with Buddy's face. Veterans held signs that said, "We trust him more than our leaders." When Maya stepped up to the podium, she didn't use notes. "I'm not a politician," she began, "and I'm not here to tell you how to vote. I'm just a mom, a nurse, a person who thought she understood what loyalty was until I met a dog who changed my life." She told them about Ethan, about how Buddy never left him, not once. She looked out across the crowd. "We call him a hero, a miracle, but he's more than that. He's a living soul. And I dare anyone in this country to look into his eyes and tell me otherwise." The crowd erupted. She stepped back, and Buddy walked forward. The square went silent. And though he never made a sound, everyone felt it. "We are not your tools. We are your allies, your brothers, your sisters, and we remember." The next day, Congress passed the bill. The president signed it into law. Buddy became the first non-human being in U.S. history granted partial legal autonomy. 2 weeks later, Buddy returned to the cabin. Ethan cried so hard he hiccuped. They sat on the porch together, the boy in his lap, stars overhead. And for the first time in a long time, the world felt possible. Because a boy who couldn't speak had found his voice through a dog no one wanted. And together they'd made history. The cabin hadn't changed much. Same pine wood deck, same worn swing chair, same rusted mailbox with the little red flag that hadn't worked right in years. But inside, everything was different. A wall once filled with bills and sticky notes now held framed news clippings. Another held photos. One of Ethan and Buddy curled on a blanket beneath a fall tree. One of Maya shaking hands with a senator outside Capitol Hill. And the one that meant the most, Buddy head down, eyes solemn, standing beside a line of other released K-9s, each with a scarf tied around their neck in their new forever homes. Ethan had named it "The Day the Dogs Came Home." It had been a year since Congress passed the K-9 Autonomy and Protection Act. 12 months since the courtroom victories and protests and nationwide debates. Most of the rescued dogs had found homes. Some went with their former handlers. Others were adopted by veterans or specially trained families. All were tracked not like property, but like respected citizens with choices, boundaries, care. And Buddy? He chose to return to the cabin, to Ethan, to the boy who first wrapped his arms around his bloody neck in the woods and said, "You're safe now." That morning, Maya stood barefoot in the kitchen waiting for the coffee to finish brewing. The news played quietly in the background. In the other headlines, Buddy the German Shepherd at the center of the Mindbridge investigation has been nominated for the National Medal of Service. She smiled softly, shaking her head. Buddy was still asleep in Ethan's bed, his tail occasionally thumping against the mattress as he chased something gentle in his dreams. By lunchtime, the house was buzzing. Emma had flown in from Seattle for the weekend. She brought Ethan his favorite spaghetti from that little Italian place off Route 23 and a new sketch pad. He'd filled the old one months ago with drawings of Buddy. Now he was working on a full comic book. "Do you think they'll print it?" he asked. Maya glanced at his cover page, Buddy and the Voice That Changed the World. "I think they'd be fools not to," she said. Later that afternoon, Buddy wandered onto the porch and flopped down near the steps. A soft wind blew through the trees. Birds chirped. Nothing urgent, nothing strange. Just life, just peace. He watched a squirrel skitter past the fence and didn't chase it. He didn't need to. Some days were for protecting, others were for resting. This was both. By evening, they lit a fire in the backyard. A simple one, just enough for marshmallows and stories. Ethan sat beside Buddy with a fleece blanket over his lap, his sketchpad forgotten. Emma poked the fire, then turned toward Maya. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if you hadn't taken that trail?" Maya nodded. "Every day. But it wasn't just chance. Something brought us there. Him. Us. All of it." Buddy lifted his head slightly as if in quiet agreement. When the stars came out, Maya leaned back in her chair, eyes misty. "I used to think stories like this were for other people. Heroes, soldiers, legends. I never thought we'd be part of something that big." Buddy stood stretched and walked over to her. He placed his head gently in her lap. And for a moment, the silence was sacred. Then Ethan whispered, "He's still a hero, even now." Maya nodded. "Yes, but he's also something more." "What?" She looked down at Buddy. "He's home." In the weeks that followed, a small publishing house in Vermont offered Ethan a deal for his comic. The local library hosted a reading event. Reporters came by, but they were kinder now, quieter, more respectful. Not every day was magical. Some were just laundry dishes, school, and dog walks. But Buddy's presence made the ordinary feel meaningful. Every tail wag, every tilt of the head, every time Ethan spoke without stammering or laughed so hard he snorted, it was all proof. Proof that what mattered most wasn't the media headlines or the legal wins. It was the healing. One chilly Saturday morning, a package arrived in the mail. A golden collar tag engraved. Maya opened the box, hand trembling slightly. The inscription read, "Buddy Sargent, survivor, friend. He gave us back our voice." Ethan clipped it onto Buddy's collar with a grin. "He likes it," he whispered. And Buddy's tail thumped once, then twice. That was all the confirmation anyone needed. On the anniversary of Buddy's rescue, they returned to that forest trail, the place where it all began. Maya brought flowers, Ethan brought the first printed copy of his comic. He placed it under a smooth stone near the clearing. "For the next dog," he said. Maya glanced at him. "Just in case someone else needs a hero." That night, Ethan asked Maya a question at bedtime. "Do you think Buddy will live forever?" Maya didn't lie. "No, honey, but his story might." Ethan turned, pulling the covers up to his chin. "Then I'll keep telling it, until everyone knows." Maya kissed his forehead. "You're already doing that." As Buddy curled up at the foot of Ethan's bed, one last thought echoed gently through Maya's mind. Not in words, but in the feeling he always left behind. "You saved me too." And with that, the lights dimmed. The house quieted. And a boy, a mom, and a dog who was never supposed to matter again fell asleep under a roof built by trust, truth, and second chances. Thank you for following this journey from the very first moment Ethan found Buddy in the woods to this peaceful, heartfelt ending. These stories remind us that sometimes the most powerful voices don't come from those who speak the loudest, but from those who listen, protect, and love without needing words. What would you have done if you were Maya? Would you have opened the door that night or walked away? We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments, and if Buddy's story moved you, please consider subscribing to Heroes for Animals so we can keep bringing you powerful stories just like this one.